Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those of you around the world. Welcome to the daily Trade the Chain crypto update, where we give you everything you need to know for the next 24 hours and hopefully the next few days. Today is Monday, January 22nd, first day of the week. So we, of course, are getting the Monday range before attacking any trades. We are currently looking at the TTC dashboard, total crypto market cap, down to 1.59 trillion, Bitcoin down, ETH down even more. Total trading volume still around that 55 billion. Definitely want to see it stay above 50. Average daily sentiment neutral, Bitcoin sentiment neutral to bearish, ETH sentiment neutral to bearish, and down on tweet. So clearly the industry is obviously still reacting to kind of the BTC ETF kind of news event. We are, obviously selling off for the most part. Obviously, even crap coins aren't as much or up as much as they have been over the past couple of weeks. And this is mostly going to be due to the GBTC situation. There was a report that came out from CoinDesk today that said that FTX is mostly done with their GBTC sells, but obviously we talked about this last week. A lot of people are basically selling GBTC to either just get rid of it or, buy a cheaper Bitcoin ETF from, let's say, BlackRock or Fidelity or ARK or one of the big nine, as they've been calling it on Twitter. And until that GBTC selling stops, that's really kind of the biggest issue right now, is just that selling of GBTC. Right now, it seems that Bitcoin ETFs are kind of outweighing it. But every time a GBTC sale happens, they have to go and sell that Bitcoin on open market, and it's a large debacle. And there's currently more sellers than buyers, obviously. So thesis is, once that selling abates, then we should bottom. But the unknown is, how long does that selling continue? Is it weeks? Is it months? Most of the conversations that I'm having right now are mostly around weeks. So hopefully towards beginning of February, we should kind of start to find a bottom. The idea is that we may have 20 to 30% downside for, anywhere from 100 to several 100% upside. So the idea right now is just to kind of be patient. Obviously, we mentioned having dry powder for after the ETF, and that this is kind of when, now is when you kind of want to start thinking about, do I want to start employing that dry powder? And I think we're getting close to that, but obviously this will be an interesting week, especially with PCE at the end. So before I dig into anything, because we always start kind of on the equity side of things, important to know what is ahead this week. So the biggest stuff that you should be aware of is GDP numbers on Thursday, expecting 1.7%, obviously going to be down from the previous 4.9%. So this will be Q4 2023 GDP. So obviously going to be slightly down, the Fed is kind of pushing us into that, soft landing. So soft landing is still, positive GDP, but not really moving too much. So as long as this number comes in as expected, wouldn't expect too many crazy things from the market. I think the negative for GDP would be if it comes in much lower than expected. I think a strong GDP, or, strong-ish numbers, still decent, because it shows the economy is still moving in the right direction. We don't exactly want a recession. We just want as close to a recession as possible without having a recession. It's kind of what the Fed wants. So the big one is PCE. And we all, we talked about this so many times in the show. Personal consumer expenditures, this is the Fed's preferred inflation metric. So this will be the one that'll really move markets if it's a miss, or, it comes in at expectations. But right now, core is expected to come in at 3. Down from 3.2. PCE, I don't know why it's not here, but it's expected to come in at 2.6, which would be equal to last month. So as long as this comes in at expectations, it's equal PCE, it's not moving higher, and core is moving lower, dipping into that 3, possibly going to be 2 in the following month. So the market should really like this expected number. So as long as we get what we expect, the market should react positively in the end of the week, at least in my opinion. So looking at DXY, we can see we were clearly rejecting off that 12-hour estimated trend to moving average. We did drop, but have had a bit of a recovery today. So basically, the moral of the story is, if you break below 103.1, you should drop down here. But do we take another stab up to 103.6? That's obviously going to be a big kind of question mark over the next couple of days. But if you break over 103.6, you're going to move up towards 104.6. If you break below 103.1, you'll move down to 102.5. And PCE could be a big catalyst for this. So we could continue to see kind of what we've been seeing since last Tuesday, which is and then, one or the other, depending on where PCE comes in. So this probably will not change too much this week, but expect, movement probably Thursday around GDP, and then more movement on Friday. So looking at equities, obviously, an absolutely fantastic close. I mean, when we spoke on Friday, it was, right around here, kind of on these tweezers, and we talked about, breaking above 48.20 and what price discovery looks like. So we are in price discovery. So if I just kind of zoom out, we are above the high from December 21st. So we've eaten the entire dip, and we're moving on to greener pastures. So obviously the big fear right now is obviously deviation back lower, which would look something like this, where you're kind of coming back into the range. Now you could still form that higher high and continue to move higher, but that deviation would definitely get a little sketchy, because then we have to have 47.50 hold. Why? I mean, at the worst case, 47.15, but 47.50 ideally, because it's that support level. So that's something to definitely watch out for in the near term. And of course, with PCE around the corner, that could be a catalyst, but I do not think you're going to move lower this week than 48.20, if that. So obviously, clearly, holding up very well on today's session. So I would expect, at worst, probably something like this. Maybe we get a stab lower on some kind of weird news event. But with the expectations of PCE coming in, flat and down for PCE and core PCE respectively, I would expect this to probably break above 48.68 at some point this week and start moving higher. So now what we're going to kind of look out for is, we've got a target kind of well above and kind of like the 5K number. But I think for all intents and purposes right now, pay attention to those nice round numbers. So pay attention to the 48, pay attention to basically the 50s and the hundreds. I think it is just the smartest idea in my opinion, because you can see this 50 level is clearly where, we're seeing some value traded. And then, I have a feeling that, once you start getting up to these 100 levels, then you're going to start, it's kind of going to be acting like Bitcoin at 37, 38, 39, 40. So that, it's just kind of like, that's kind of voodoo, but it's a voodoo that kind of ends up coming alive more often than not. So moral of the story is break below 48.40, drop to 48.20, break above 48.68, probably attack 4900, maybe higher. Looking at Bitcoin, we just got another dump. Let's check our AGGR really quick. This is kind of shows us the order books and kind of exchange specific stuff. So we did have a lot of buys coming in. Someone just kind of dumped on everybody's heads, pretty coordinated. But I was kind of looking for here to see if it was, Binance or Coinbase or Bybit specific. Doesn't look like Bitfinex participated too much, but it does look like pretty much every single exchange just kind of hit the sale button at the same time. So certainly not fun, but odd thing is that Bitfinex apes came in pretty hard at 40.8. That's interesting. That's something to keep note of. And maybe, they haven't puked yet. Doesn't seem like either. So maybe this is trying to get the Bitfinex apes to puke because it's kind of sweeping. So we'll see what happens. But since we're moving over to Bitcoin anyway, so let's just kind of get a bit better review. So we're obviously, getting really close to that 40K number, which is when I start to get a little bit worried. Probably better to kind of look at a higher time frame here because, actually, I'm just going to move back to the 1 hour. We can see that, targets are being hit for kind of the downside. So obviously, breaking below the 40.7 level, obviously tagged 40.2, break below 40.2, you're going to drop down to 39.6. So just be aware of if this level breaks, 39.6 is next. But if we're looking at the higher time frames, these are the lows that we need to survive, right? We can definitely tag this 12-hour estimated 200 moving average and still have, big zoom potential. But that would be a lower low and on a higher time frame. And so that's certainly not what we want to see. So things are getting very precarious here. If you break below this level right here, so this 39.6 level is going to coincide with a 12-hour estimated 200 moving average. So it's going to be kind of 39.3 to 39.6 will be kind of this little demand zone. If you break below that, big area down here at 38, basically 38 flat down to 37.6. And then if you break below that, I guess it's just kind of pray for 33K to hold, because then that's the low down here. Because if you break below this, that's a fair value gap you don't want to mess with, because then that would drop us down to probably 31, probably 32, or maybe even lower down here at 31. So basically big critical level 39.6. I mean, right now is very critical, but also critical level 39.6, below 39.6, 38 to 37.6. And then below that, well, I don't even want to talk about it right now. So yeah, things are definitely getting sketchy, but we've been in very sketchy positions before. I remember this dump, everybody thought that the world was ending on the 14th, and then we just kind of spiked back and kept the bull trend going. So I'm not going to be worried yet, but this is the time to start really paying attention and saying, is it worth the risk and reward? If you are buying a little bit at 40K, that's not the worst idea in the world, because technically that is where you should be taking your bets. This is pretty much the last line in the sand down to 39.6, for really good entries if your belief is higher from here. So I'm probably dipping my toes in a little bit here, and then obviously going to see what kind of price action looks like into the week, because maybe PCE comes in good and everything kind of shifts, and maybe these GBT sales kind of start to abate towards the end of the week. So I mean, there's so many variables, but right now, just from a technical perspective, this low is a major last stand, and surviving this low could mean back to the highs again, very similarly to what we kind of saw in this scenario. It is a very similar scenario. Remember, spiked up, kind of rolled back over, spiked up, rolled over. So again, nothing repeats itself one-to-one, but this is where you want to make your bet, and kind of 39.6 would be maybe your stop area for a spot trade, because then you'd be risking 2% for possibly 18%. So it's not the worst trade in the world for a purely spot trade, So that's definitely, this is again, last stand. This is where you want to see holds. And then, kind of confirmation of it holding, if we can get again back above this low right here, which is 41.5. If we can get back above 41.5, then definitely you can see a little rally sparking again. And new type, I'm going to get to your question right after I cover ETH. So he asked a question about Dino coins. So let's, ETH, we just had a nice little sell-off and then nice little buyback. So I do like this hourly candle. It's obviously surviving pretty hardcore at this 23.55 level. Told DTC if it breaks below 23.55, going to tag 23.05. If it can get above 24.03, it should run up to 24.45, and then above 24.45, hopefully 24.70. For if you are entering along here, there is a trade. That's not what I wanted. Considering it's just like it's attacking these wicks, or it's getting bought pretty heavily at this 23.55 level. So you'd be risking 0.6 for 3.5. Not the worst trade in the world. I actually may take that, but safer bet again. Probably better to wait until it breaks above the weekly VWAP. So ETH is very straightforward, but it definitely did drop a lot lower than we wanted, and it definitely negated the long idea that we talked about. With the lows right here. So, always, probably just better to be patient on the safe side, probably wait for that weekly VWAP break, and just, attack it. But, if we kind of zoom out on ETH as well, was telling the TTC community, this is still bullish market structure. Highs, lows. This is still bullish market structure. So we could still do something like that, or maybe even drop down as low as that and still be bullish. So, ETH, I'm not too worried about, but I think ETH, you need to get very worried down here at 22.50. This is when, kind of last stand starts to happen, because then you're fighting with these lows down here again. And you've also got this 12-hour estimated 200 moving average. So if we get down to 22.50, that's when you really start paying attention, with kind of 2100 being a very, very critical level in my opinion. So 2150 really start paying, or 2250 really start paying attention. 2100 kind of the true last stand for bullish market structure for ETH. So new type asked, are Dino coins only really good for short-term scalping? Yes, I would say, just to answer your question very directly, yes, I would only do short-term scalps on these, because, if you're looking at the 12-hour chart, this would make you go mad sitting in a swing trade, and you're likely to get stopped. So, I mean, this one I probably wouldn't even trade because I mean, look at that. I mean, who's quick enough to snipe that kind of stuff? And then you're stuck at your computer literally 24/7. So a good idea is to go over to these to coinglass.com. And then go to Binance, you know, sometimes Bybit, depending on what your flavor is, and then just sort by funding. So green is good. So BNB's got high funding, CTSI, RDNT, RLC. So let's just pick out BNB really quick because it's a big one. So it won't have too crazy movements. I don't like that. You know, there's not enough action. Let's try RDNT. And a lot of things are probably gonna have like bearish charts. So yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot of these have bearish charts right now, but I mean, if this ends up breaking back above this, I could totally see something like, you know, maybe with a target up to the 1 hour estimated 200 moving average. Because look, also every time it breaks above the weekly VWAP and above the 1 hour estimated 200 moving, 1 hour estimated 200 moving average, it does do a pretty big zoom, right? Like see zoom. So actually, yeah, RDNT doesn't look that bad. If it gets above the weekly, VWAP and right here, I would target at least here. And then if it breaks above that, you could probably get another trade out of it. Maybe up to this previous week's VWAP or these highs. That's if obviously Bitcoin and ETH, you know, survive this level, which I don't think is that worst of a possibility because this is last week's low. And then it just swept last week's low on the Monday range. So we're gonna have our Monday low down here and our Monday high is up here. So I could easily see a Monday high sweep, which like target up here, which would be targeting the 1 hour estimated 200 moving average or previous week's VWAP on Bitcoin. So there are trades here. It's just a matter of patience and how much risk you want to take. I don't really think you should be like taking a whole lot of leverage on the charts right now because nobody knows what's going on. And we're seeing a bunch of GBTC sells, but at the end of the day, you know, you got to look for opportunity when everybody's at their most fearful, you know, and people are starting to get pretty fearful. And so that's why I do think a bottom is soon. And I think PCE could be a really big catalyst for us. So we'll obviously continue to update everybody tomorrow with the Monday range intact, but, you know, good rule of thumb is pick out your Monday range. And then, you know, once the Monday day closes and then attack your trades based on sweeps of the high, sweeps of the low, or breaks of the low or breaks of the high. Easiest way to attack the week. And so if you're in new type, if you're looking for like, you know, XNO or high funding rate coins or whatever, then wait for the Monday range to form and then pick out your levels. Like get the VWAP on there, get the 1 hour estimated 200 moving average. If RDNT breaks above that low and the VWAP, then trade it up to the 1 hour estimated moving average, because if, you know, hopefully Bitcoin and ETH are kind of trading that direction as well. So you've got your triggers, right? If it breaks above the weekly VWAP and it breaks above that low, I'm going to enter the long, you know, so just be patient and kind of figure out exactly how you want to attack things, because this could obviously head lower. And that's why I think it's just better to be patient. So I do not know what is going to happen on the charts in the near term. And that's just why I think it's just better to probably relax, you know, and just time out things and wait for those triggers. The website is v3.aggr.com. Here, I'll just post it in there. If you're a TTC member, new type, DM me or tag me in the community, and I'll give you the file to be able to run what you're seeing on my screen right now, because it requires a special, you know, file and inputs and stuff like that. And then the other website is CoinGlass. This is where you'll find the all the funding and all that fun stuff. So. Alrighty, well, we are going to go ahead and get out of here. Good luck. Happy trading. We will see everybody tomorrow. And again, if you're not in the Trade the Chain community, you can get a 14-day free trial at www.tradethechain.com.